welcome to The Horse Show. I'm Chris Stafford, and my guest is 22-year-old Catherine Chamberlain. A dressage trainer from Temecula, California, Kate has been riding and competing in the Olympic discipline of dressage for 13 years now, and is the United States Dressage Federation's bronze, silver, and gold medalist. Kat has competed in the FEI North American Junior and Young Rider Championships on 5 occasions, bringing home 2 individual gold medals, 3 team gold medals, and 3 individual silver medals. She's the 2015 U.S. Young Rider National Champion and represented her country at the Hagen CDIOY Nations Cup in Germany in 2015. Kat has always been determined and focused and absolutely dedicated to the sport of dressage, and she hopes to compete in the Under-25 Grand Prix division in 2018 before transitioning to the Senior Grand Prix ranks. However, behind all this success, Kat has privately suffered from depression and an eating disorder since the age of 12. She eventually sought help, and she joins me now to share her story in the hope that it will help others who may be experiencing similar challenges. Kat, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, Kat, you and I have spoken in the past about dressage-specific topics, and of course with your riding career. But this time we want to talk about something that involves young women anywhere really in sport, and it's something that you have faced through your younger years. But let's just give our listeners an overview of how you came into the sport and your involvement in the sport right now, and then we'll talk about the topics behind your story.
I'm currently working as a professional dressage rider in Temecula, California. I began riding seriously around 9 years old. I really just fell in love with horses and the sport of dressage, and I went on to have a really successful junior young rider career where I competed at the North American Championships several times and came home with 8 medals. I've also won the Young Rider National Championship and was able to compete in Europe as a young rider. And through all of that and having success, I was struggling with some personal issues at the same time. I was struggling with eating disorders and then resulting depression from it. So I really wanted to bring those topics to light and try to help other people that were dealing with the same things as well, and realize that you don't have to be ashamed about it. You don't have to feel bad about struggling with those things, and that we can all help each other get through it. You know, it's something that happens to everyone. We all have our own insecurities, and if we can really be open about it and talk about it and not think of it as something that we have to hide, I think that's really going to help so many people.
Well, absolutely, Kat. So let's go back in time then to which started first. Was it your eating disorders or did the depression? Give us an idea of the onset of it and how you identified it.
The first time I remember not liking my body was when I was 12 years old. I'd never really had any issues before that. You know, I was a normal kid. I did lots of sports. I ate a normal diet, so I didn't have anything weird that I think triggered it. I just remember when I was 12, that was the year that I really decided to get serious about dressage, and I wanted to make this my career. And I just remember having the feeling of, I think my legs are too big. I don't look like some of those dressage riders that are really, stick thin with tiny little legs that just drape down the horse's side. As a shorter kid and adult now, I'm only 5'4", so I never grew any taller. And a little bit more of like a muscular physique. So I just remember thinking, I don't look like those petite dressage riders who are really tall and have long limbs. So maybe I need to look like them to be successful. At that time, I didn't really have any tools to change the way that I looked. So I kind of just went on for a year, not really being happy with myself, but not really knowing how to change it either. And then ironically, when I was 13, I took a health class in school that talked about nutrition and exercise and different things that we do to affect our body. And, a lot of people think that would be a good thing, like, okay, you're going to learn how to really take care of yourself and everything. But I took that information and it became twisted in my head to me thinking, okay, now I have the tools to change my body into the way that I think I need to look to be successful as a dressage rider. So I started dieting. I started working out like crazy. I would want to do like an hour of cardio workout each day. I'd want to do an hour of working some sort of muscle group, whether it be arms or core or whatnot. And then I was also riding horses, and I was also working at the barn. So I was doing a ton of physical exercise, pushing myself to the max. And then I started really restricting my diet. So I think I started out counting calories, and I think I started around 2,000 calories a day. So not terrible, but a growing kid, first of all, they don't really need to count calories. And as you're growing and doing as much physical exercise as I need, you need to eat enough calories to sustain that. And then I thought, okay, well, I think I can cut it back a little bit more. And I think I can cut it back a little bit more now. And I got down to the point where I was only eating 900 calories a day. I was so obsessed with tracking every single thing that I put into my body. Before I would go out to eat at restaurants with my family, I would look up their menus and see, what amount of calories the food had in it, and how much fat and how much sugar, and all this stuff was just, I was so obsessed with it, and I had to do it. I really felt like, okay, this is the key. This is how I'm gonna be better. This is how I'm gonna make myself look better, so I can ride better. And these thoughts that would just keep going on in my brain. Now looking back, you can realize that's not true. That's not going to help you. You're really hurting your body. But when you're in the throes of it and you feel like what you're doing is helpful, it's really hard to see clearly, so you just have these little things that you feel a compulsion to do. And that's what it was for me. So I went from being, I think it was around 113 pounds or so when I was a 13-year-old. And then I lost about 20 pounds in the next couple of years from just being really restrictive in my dieting and exercising so much. So I got down to like 94 pounds when I was around 14 or 15, which was really, really scary. I was so tiny, skin and bones. And I started to have times where I felt like I was just going to pass out from lack of, nutrition. And my family obviously noticed the weight drop, and they would, ask me questions, ask if I was okay, if I needed, help through anything. And I was just so sure that what I was doing was a good thing that I would just deny it. I would tell them, oh yeah, I just tried to start eating healthier, so that's why I lost weight. And I would, hide all of my dieting books that I had and stuff like that, just because I thought, okay, yeah, they're not going to see it as a good thing, but I really feel like this is what I have to do to be successful. So I just have to, keep it to myself and not tell anybody. So I think finally what snapped me out of that extreme phase was having those moments where, I would just be cleaning tack in the tack room and all of a sudden feel really lightheaded and like I was going to pass out. And that scared me. And I think that scared me enough to think, oh, maybe this isn't such a good thing. Maybe I am hurting my body. So I got a little bit better from there. I realized that eating 900 calories a day was not nearly enough and that I could seriously hurt myself that way. And like I said, I think the only reason that I was able to snap out of that extreme of anorexia was just feeling like, oh, like this really is hurting me. And, if I keep going down this path, I could do irreversible damage to my body. So I still kept counting calories, but I increased the amount that I ate. I backed off the extreme working out a little bit. I was still very strict about everything, but I was able to gain about 15 pounds. So I was around just under 110, I think, when I was 15, 16 years old. And I know all the numbers because I was very obsessed with my number on the scale too. It's always like, okay, how much do I weigh now? How much do I weigh today? Oh, I just weighed myself this morning, but now I need to know how much I weigh this evening. So that to me was just, a huge thing, was always counting numbers, whether it was the number on the scale, the number of calories I was eating, the number of hours I was working out. So I think it was a little bit of OCD that I was, dealing with too, just being so obsessed with all of those things. So for a couple of years, I went on with that, being healthier than I was, obviously at 94 pounds, but still mentally being just so controlling over myself. and really just having a hard time thinking about food or exercise normally. And I still never told anybody. Then it became something that I was ashamed of, because looking back, I could see how much damage I had done in this couple of years, when I thought that it was a really good thing for me. So I became ashamed of it. Like, oh, I can't tell anybody about that because, look what I was doing to myself. That's really bad. And I don't want anybody to judge me for it. So I kept struggling on my own. And finally, when I was 16 or 17, I started dealing with other physical issues. I started developing an autoimmune condition called relapsing polychondritis, which basically causes inflammation of your cartilage. So it affects my joints, and it just make you feel really run down and really tired and fatigued. And at that time, I didn't know that I was dealing with the autoimmune condition. I thought that I just needed to try harder. I felt tired. I was like, oh, you just have to push through it, keep going. If your body hurts, it's fine. You just still have to work out and still do everything that you did before. But finally I got to a point where I felt like I physically couldn't. I was still in high school trying to graduate early, doing online school. I was working long days at the barn, still doing competitions and everything, and just totally running myself down. And that was around the time where I started dealing with depression, because I had this idea of perfectionism in my head about what I needed to do to be, a successful person. I thought I needed to, ride perfectly every day. I thought I needed to diet perfectly. I thought I needed to exercise all the time. That I needed to do perfectly in my schoolwork, that I just needed to have my life together, in every aspect. And I held myself to this unattainable level of perfection that I couldn't reach. So every time that I set these goals for myself that were unrealistic and then failed to reach them, I just started to feel really bad about myself. So that was around the time where the depression started to creep in, just feeling like, I'll never be good enough. I'll never feel good enough about myself. And that really got me down. That did kind of snap me out of the really strict dieting, just because I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. It was too much. I really just felt like I was letting myself down. So in some ways it was good, because I finally let my body, develop normally, not really being so restrictive over my food intake. But as good as that was for me physically, mentally it really took its toll, because, all of a sudden I didn't have the same body that I'd had since I was, 13 or 14, which wasn't healthy, but in my mind, that was what I needed to be like to look good, So all of a sudden I didn't look like a little kid anymore. And that was really hard for me to grasp, because I'd worked so hard for so long to maintain that. So it was definitely a few years after that, from when I was, about 17 to 21, that I really just struggled with kind of going back and forth, trying to be really restrictive in my dieting again, but then struggling as well with the autoimmune condition, and then just the depression, feeling like, I can't do this. I'm just never going to be good enough for myself. And, during all this time is when I had the success as a rider in the equestrian community. That's when I won all of my medals at North American Championships. That's when I got to compete in Europe. That's when I started doing work with the community through the United States Dressage Foundation. And it was just a very weird time for me, because I felt like, okay, I have this image from the outside of how people see me. They see me as successful. They see me as having my life together. And I felt like I really had to maintain that. I felt like I couldn't let anybody know how much I was struggling with things. So I just struggled on my own for so many years, and that's what I want to help out others with, is just helping them realize you don't have to struggle on your own. If I could go back to my younger self and just like grab me by the shoulders and shake me and say, tell someone that you need help, just reach out to your family, tell somebody that you're struggling with these things and they can help you. I feel like I would have saved myself so much misery and so much suffering if I would have just reached out sooner. So I'm hoping that I can get that message across to other people, that, you don't have to be ashamed of what you're struggling with. Other people are going to be so happy to be able to help you, because they see that you're struggling. My family saw that I was struggling and they tried to help. But like I said, I was just so ashamed of myself that I felt like I had to keep everything a secret and I couldn't ever tell anybody about my issues. And it wasn't until really last year that I had a big breakthrough. I had a horse that I got when I was 12, and he was a 5-year-old at that time, and we grew up together. We were best friends. He was just like my soulmate in a horse version. He was such a great horse. And when he was 13, he suffered from a colic and resulted in complications over the next month. So this was at the end of 2015. And finally, we had to put him down. And that was just so hard for me to go through because I love that horse so much. And once again, I blamed myself for it. I thought that I had failed him. I thought I should have been able to do more for him. And with that and just his loss, I finally realized, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this on my own. It was just a really hard period of time for me. And I finally realized that I need to ask somebody for help. I need to reach out to my family. I need to reach out to my friends, and I need to let other people help me because I don't trust myself to take care of myself anymore. So, I was 21 at that time, and finally, I called my parents. I was like, hey guys, so these are some things I've been, working through the past several years. It was really hard for me to make that phone call, but when I finally was talking to my parents, it wasn't hard at all. They're so awesome and understanding. Obviously, as a parent, it's hard for you to hear that your kid's been struggling with those things, but like I said, like your parents know, your family knows that you've been dealing with some things, but they don't know exactly what. So I think for my parents, it was so helpful for them to finally hear, okay, these are the exact things that, I need help with. And this is how they can help me. So that was really good conversation for me to have. I was able to talk to my close friends about different things that I was having a hard time with so they could help me as well on a day-to-day basis. And I started seeing a therapist. I think it was probably April of last year. And it was just so different. It was a really, I think, life-changing few months for me to finally come to that conclusion of, okay, I've been trying to fix these things on my own for how many years now? And, clearly I just keep making things worse trying to do it on my own. And finally reaching out for help and then getting the help that I needed was just amazing. Obviously with everything you have ups and downs, so you're going to go through times where things start to get better, and then you're going to have some pitfalls, where you might fall into bad habits again, or you might have some days that are still really down days, and that's okay. That's how everything goes. It's like, you go uphill for a little while, you might plateau or go down a little bit, but as long as you keep trying and keep making the effort, things will get better. So yeah, I did therapy for several months for that, and I really liked the girl that I was going to see. She helped me through a lot of my issues. Everyone's things are different, so you just have to find someone that can really understand your point of view and where you're coming from and help you through things. But it's just been really incredible because I feel like I'm truly happy for the first time in so many years. And I'm happy with myself. I think that's the biggest thing because I had a great life before. I had great family. I had great friends. I was in a great place with my riding and with horses. I always did well in school, so my life before was always, everything I could have asked for. It was just myself that I was never happy with. So now for the first time in, so long, I'm really happy with myself. I'm confident with myself, and it's just an amazing feeling. And so that's what I really want to help other people with, is realize that you can love yourself and you can be happy with yourself, even if you've struggled with really tough things and you feel like you're never going to be good enough or that you need to change this or that to be successful. It's all in your head. And you can find happiness. It's not easy, but if you can reach out to others for help and just put the work in. I always would think to myself, I don't feel like struggling with eating disorders is a choice, or struggling with any mental issue is a choice. But what is your choice is finally getting the help for it, and finally deciding that you want to change so you can be happy with yourself and happy with your life.
That's a very powerful story, and there's a lot of important messages there for especially young women who are very image conscious, very body conscious in those formative years, going from into your early teens is really very impressionable age for a young woman, and to be going through that on your own as well must be especially hard. And I'm curious, when you said you kept it from your parents, but you obviously had a close circle of friends in school and so on. Was anyone among your peers understanding, or did they notice anything, or did you feel that you had indeed peer pressure from not only them but also from your riding buddies as well?
I don't feel like I necessarily had pressure from peers as far as anyone saying, oh, you need to lose weight or you need to look different. But in our society, there is always that pressure on women in general to look a certain way. So, even other people saying, oh, I need to lose weight, I'm too fat, this or that, they're talking about themselves, but, we look at each other and I might think, oh, well, she looks better than me. So if she feels like she has to lose weight, then I clearly have to lose weight too, So it was never anyone saying anything, mean to me, or anyone being like, oh, you don't look good, you need to look this way or that way. And especially the riding community, that was the biggest thing for me, is just seeing like, oh, to be a successful dressage rider, I have to look that part of being, skinny and leggy and just having that almost ballerina look, I guess. And nobody ever said anything to me about that. Nobody ever said, oh, your legs are too short, your legs are too big, your thighs are too big. Those are all the things that I thought in my head. But it's still the same thing. You feel that peer pressure. You see some of the top dressage riders and what they look like, and you just think, to yourself, oh, I have to look like them if I ever want to be a top rider. So definitely with friends, they would notice, I think, for sure. Obviously with me, when I lost that much weight when I was younger, you could clearly see a huge difference in my appearance. So I would always have family and friends asking, if I was okay, or, why I had lost so much weight, but I never talked to anybody about it. I never came forward and said, oh yeah, I feel like I have to be, skinnier, or, I've been dieting a lot so that I lose weight. I just always tried to hide it, and I tried to hide my dieting because I just felt like I had to keep it a secret so that nobody would think less of me for it. I think there is that stigma around, mental health issues in general, that people are going to blame you for it, or they're going to look down on you for it. But what I really found when I came forward with my issues last year, and I finally did talk to family and friends, and then I went on a wider scale, and then I wrote an article about all my issues, is I had so much support from the whole community. All of my friends, all my family, they were so supportive, and you start to hear stories about other people that struggle with the exact same things, Unfortunately, I do feel like it's not uncommon for women to struggle with those things. And even if it's not to the same scale as having like a full-blown, eating disorder or whatnot, we all have our own insecurities. So I think it is really easy for people to understand your struggles and where you're coming from. So that was a huge relief for me when I finally came forward with my story, is just having such an incredible outpouring of support from everyone. Because that was my biggest fear coming forward, is, oh, people are going to judge me, people aren't going to like me anymore, they're going to think of me differently. And it was totally the opposite. I got so much love from everyone, so I was so grateful for that. And I think it really just goes to show that you don't have to be scared of talking to others, and you don't have to feel ashamed of yourself, because nobody's going to think of you any differently. Nobody's going to look down on you for your struggles. And if you can find a great support system, that's going to help you so much.
One of the most important things as you're growing up as a young girl is making friends and becoming accepted amongst your peer group and amongst, the friends out socially as well, not just in your riding world. How did it affect you socially and engaging maybe, to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or how did that impact you? Were you very self-conscious about it? Did it inhibit you?
Yeah, I think socially it definitely makes things much harder. Anytime people ask you to go out to dinner or they ask you to go to a party, in my head all I think about was like, oh, what kind of food is going to be there? I need to look up this menu for the restaurant online so I can see, what I can eat there, what has the least amount of calories. And then even just getting ready for things, when you hate your body that much, you never feel confident. So when you're trying to find clothes to wear, it's like you never feel good in anything, and you don't want to go out because you just don't feel good about yourself. And it's not a fun experience, and I know so many women can relate to that. So it definitely does affect you socially. Just never being able to totally enjoy yourself and enjoy your friends. And I feel like in a lot of ways it did steal things away from my childhood because of that. I couldn't, for a long time, I couldn't just ever go out and enjoy, like holiday festivities, for example. So Christmas, which should be a great time. Everyone loves Christmas. It's always fun, or, whatever your holiday is during that time of year. So, you go with family and friends, you should be able to enjoy yourself, celebrate just being together, celebrate each other's company. But it was really hard for a few years for me because I would just think, oh my God, there's going to be all this terrible food there. People are going to be watching me eat. They're going to see how much I'm eating. I'm not going to be able to try to hide my dieting. And, you just have all these thoughts running through your head that make it not enjoyable. So when you should be celebrating with your family and friends, you're still so worried about those things, and it definitely takes that away. And I was a very shy kid in general too, so having all of those things that kind of undermine my confidence even more definitely was hard for me. So that's also been another, I think, big step in my life this past year when I finally was able to get past these issues and work on them. I think it is something that you have to always be aware of, for your whole life. So now I'm in a really good place with myself, and, food and health and everything I feel really good about, but it's always going to be something that I'm going to be self-aware about, and make sure that I never do fall into bad habits again or whatnot. And if I do feel myself starting to do, some bad habits or whatnot, I know I have a good support system now to help me. But yeah, this past year, I feel like really overcoming those issues helped me kind of find a new self, if that makes sense. So it's like there's this whole other Catherine that is in there that is confident, that does, love herself and just is able to find the joy in life more. So I actually started to dabble in music a little bit because I've always loved music, but horses were always my focus at my whole life. So I never really had any other hobbies or interests in life since I was 9 years old, just because I was so focused and so intense about dressage. So finally this last year, I was like, you know what? It's great to be really focused. It's great to be really serious, but you also have to find things in life that let you enjoy it, and just have almost a break from being so focused and so serious all the time. So I started going to this place called School of Rock. It's a music school, and started doing voice lessons and guitar and piano, and that's been just a great outlet for me to really just enjoy something for myself and do it, for myself, and have it be something that's just a really great source of happiness in my life. And through that, I also met my boyfriend Andrew at School of Rock, so that was a win-win for me. I found a great hobby, and I also found a great boyfriend. So, but yeah, it's been just this last year has been really a big transitional year for me, and it makes me really excited about the future. And that for me is a great feeling, because before it was really hard for me to be excited about the future when all I could foresee for myself were, my issues getting worse and worse. And, especially with the depression, that made it really hard to ever look forward to anything or, look forward to growing up, because you just think to yourself, is this going to keep getting harder? Am I going to keep feeling worse about myself? And, you just don't ever look forward to things when you're in that state of mind. So now for me to really feel excited about things and feel excited about the future is just really incredible.
You mentioned that you saw a therapist eventually, Kat, but how did you deal with your depression before you got help?
Not very well, I don't feel like. I just kept trying to tell myself that I needed to make it better when I was dealing with the depression because of, my different eating issues, and then just feeling down on myself because of, basically my whole life I just felt like I had to be better at everything. And so I just tell myself, every day I'd be like, okay, tomorrow you're going to do better. You're going to eat this way. You're going to be organized in this way. You're going to get this, and this done. And I just kept holding myself to such a, high standard. And then I felt like letting myself down, that I don't feel like I dealt with my depression effectively on my own. So I think it took me going to see a therapist and getting different tools that I could work on until I could finally make that better. So now, if I start to feel a little bit down on myself, or start to feel, any of those same feelings that I had before when I was depressed, I have different tools now where I can think, okay, is this a reasonable thought? And, is this helpful or is this harmful? And they just give you a lot of different strategies, a lot of different tools that you can work through, so you never really get down into that deep, dark place where everything feels impossible. If you have different methods to combat those feelings and combat those negative thoughts, then you can help yourself get back on the right path before you get down in that hole. And once you're down there, it's really hard to get out on your own. And that's where I was. I kept trying to make things better on my own. I kept trying to be, better at everything and trying to make myself feel better at everything. But I don't think I could do it on my own until I got help. And then once I got help and was able to get those different tools from her, now I can help myself. But it just was definitely a transitioning period of feeling really helpless and feeling really down on myself, to realizing that, it doesn't have to be this way. I don't have to feel this way. And then finally realizing how I can help myself. That's been, I think, the biggest thing, is learning, what is effective as far as getting help. And then, once you have those tools, being able to help yourself in the right way.
Well, Kat, having known you, is interesting that you had all this happening in the background of what was emerging to be a very successful career as a junior and young rider, adding the medals and the accolades and enjoying tremendous success as a young rider. It's, I'm sure, surprising to some that would know you that this was happening all the time, that you were getting that success and building on your career to go into the senior ranks. So I'm curious, I know that confidence comes from within, but was there any affirmation, any of that recognition and the success you were seeing in the results and the ribbons and the medals that you were winning that told you, actually, I'm doing okay, I must be doing something right here?
I do think the one area that I did have confidence was in my riding, so that was one thing that could keep me going if I felt down on myself about other things, was, like, okay, well, I am doing well in my riding, I'm having success there. So I think that is one reason why I put so much effort into it, and that's why it basically became my whole life for so long, was because that was like the one thing that I felt like I was good at. So, it was good in some ways because it gave me something to really work towards and gain a little bit of confidence in. But, on the other hand, it also became sort of a crutch. So I could kind of hide behind that, where like, oh, I'm having these other issues. But, if I just put all my energy and all my focus and all my drive into this, it'll be okay, because at least I have this one thing. And yeah, I think definitely having success and, like I said before, other people from the outside looking at me, would think, oh, everything's going great. She's having success. She's doing really well. In some ways, at first, that made it harder for me to get help because I almost felt like a fraud in a sense. And that was why last year, when I finally decided to come to my family and friends about my issues and then get help with my issues, I felt the need to not only do that privately, but then also write an article and put it out to the whole equestrian community, basically, because for me, healing-wise, I didn't want to feel like a fake anymore, if that makes sense. I just felt like before, like, oh, everyone thinks, I'm really successful and I'm really great. And, those things were still true, but just for me mentally, I wanted to feel like I was totally honest about myself, with myself, with everyone else. And that's been a really great feeling too, is like, oh, nobody sees me any differently. They still see me as being successful. They still see me as being a good person, even though I've struggled with these things. That didn't change at all just because I came forward with these issues. So that was super helpful to me. So I didn't feel like I was, a fraud anymore, that I was having to put on this front of being perfect when I didn't feel like I was. Now I can be like, yeah, I'm not perfect, but who is? Nobody can do everything perfectly, all the time. Everyone has their different issues and different things that they struggle with. So that was definitely a huge help to me. And now I can view riding as something that I'm good at, but it doesn't have to be, the only good thing in my life. It's definitely still a huge part of my life. I love it almost even more now because now it's not something that I'm like hanging on to, like, oh, this is the only thing I can do well. So if I'm not, if I have a bad show or, whatever, my whole life is over. Now I can think, okay, I love doing this. I love riding horses. I love competing. It's something that I am good at, something that I really have a great time doing. But I can also have other things in my life that I'm good at as well. I can be good at music. I can be good at, I started rock climbing now for exercise because it's also something that's enjoyable and not something that I'm, forcing myself to do. I can have relationships with my family and friends and boyfriend, and it's just opened up this whole other part of life that I didn't have before because I was just so, focused on riding and on horses because I felt like that was the one thing that was like holding my life together, I guess. And now I can really enjoy it in a much better way because I can still be successful at it, but I can have, riding in my life and have that be a great thing, but also have so many other great things in my life as well.
And now, of course, you've found your true, authentic self, and it sounds like you're a well-rounded person now, and that confidence and that security comes from deep within, Kat, in all the right ways now. So it really has been an amazing journey for you. And I want to really get a final message here for young people who may be listening to this, Kat.
I just really want to say, don't feel ashamed of yourself. Don't feel like there's anything wrong with you because you're struggling with these things. It happens to so many people more than you would think. We all have our insecurities, and it's normal. There's nothing wrong with you because you have issues or because you struggle with things. So I think once you can realize that, that's going to help you so much because that's what held me back from getting help for so long, is just feeling so bad about myself because of the issues that I was dealing with. So do not feel bad about yourself because, you are a good person. You have so much to offer the world, and there are so many people that want to help you if you let them. And don't be afraid to ask for help, even if it's just starting out with one person that you feel like you can trust. If it's a family member, if it's a friend, just start with one person that you feel like you can start to confide to, and just take baby steps. Recovery is a process that takes a long time, and it can feel really insurmountable. So just take it one step at a time. Every small step is a success, and just take your time going through it. Don't rush yourself, because if it's going to last and if it's going to be something that you can continue to achieve and continue to feel better, it's just going to take time. And then I think finally just realize that your life is going to be so much better and you're going to be so much happier if you can try to work your way through your issues. I think oftentimes our struggles, whether they be, eating disorders or depression or whatnot, almost become a crutch for us to lean on a little bit, and we can't imagine what life would be like if those weren't there. Even if they make us miserable, they become part of our identity. So for so many years for me, eating disorders were part of my identity. When I thought of myself, that was something that I, identified as being part of my life. So it can be really hard to make that step to cutting those things out of your life. Just realize how much happier and how much more content and how much more excited about life you're going to be once you can work through these issues and really find yourself and really be happy with your true self.
Well, that's a great message, Kat, and clearly we can expect all kinds of things from you now. I mean, as a musician, we expect that you'll be probably writing your freestyle music for your next dressage test, and rock climbing, obviously reaching new heights, no pun intended, but clearly finding pathways for the future, Kat, that you had not explored before. So I'm delighted that you felt able to share your story with us, and I want to wish you the very best of luck with all of those endeavors. And thank you very much for taking the time to come on the program.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be able to talk about these things and hopefully help others.
And you can find resources on our show notes. That's all on our website at wispsports.com, and also via social media, where Kat has very kindly offered to respond if you have any comments or questions, or may be suffering from any of the conditions that Kat spoke about. You can also email us directly here to info@wispsports.com. And you can find us on social media. Just look for Wisp Sports on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're listening to this podcast online, you can also find it on iTunes to download it to any podcast app. Until the next time, thank you for listening.